It doesn't matter that it requires one basic attack to kill those minions. It matters that they are there. But Rona has been picked up against a most likely weapon petal lane. That's a risky pick because, yes, you can if you foe splitter in, then when petal trampoline's away, you can into the fray to follow up. But if you don't get that foe splitter onto petal, you cannot use into the fray because she's just going to trampoline away. She's going to get the Vanguard. Petal's going to be able to run away from you. And if it's a CP petal, that counters Rona as well. So very interesting from Impunity.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about some of Impunity's draft choices today. I was a bit skeptical on the Sky pick, especially for Weapon Power Sky in the previous match. I could see the, I guess, positives in it in that previous draft and why it could have worked out. But in the end, they go for that of a Reza to finish that comp. Reza, Rona, Lyra, not a bad comp at all. I mean, they have a lot of burst, a lot of engage potential with that of the sustain coming through from Rona's own kit for herself, and that of Lyra with the Imperial Sigil to keep them up.
Yeah, I think the last pick from Renagades is they should keep this petal as weapon power and just jump away. They have a couple of options. Either go for a Samuel with a kite composition, or I was not expecting Batiste. I was expecting maybe they'd go with the Cruel and try and beat them in a 1v1. But Batiste is good against Rona, good against Reza, because they have lots of movement abilities. They always have to try and run towards this petal. So Batiste will be able to stop them from doing that. The only problem with this Batiste pickup is if Rona and Reza focus him, they just dive in on that Batiste. He has nothing to disengage with. He only has to boots to run away, and Fearsome Shade, he stands still. If you block it, then he's in a bad position.
Yeah, so I think that really there's a pretty decent comp, even though I thought that it could be a bit of a Rona pick. I like the Reza. I think it complements the Rona, especially the overall engage comp that they're looking at going for. Engage and sustain in team fights. Although that Batiste is a good way of just locking down anyone, especially if they're not targeting you. And if they're running after that pedal, they're less likely to take a second and stop while inside of that ordained, and they're more likely to trip over and stun themselves up, and then giving Petal an easy opportunity to land some free damage.
I do think that trusting misplays for Renegades is not a good win condition, or trusting misplays from Impunity is also not a good win condition. So I would expect all of these Ordains to either be stayed inside or blocked. It never makes sense to get stunned by Ordained. You should either wait for it to expire, because you can kite while inside it, or just reflex block your way out of it. I would like to see damage on this Batiste. I think that going for Clockwork into Echo, it can work in some situations. I don't think against this comp it's worth it, because you know they're going to just dive Petal. They're not going to ignore you no matter what damage you have. If you have Clockwork, they're going to ignore you. If you have Shatterglass, they're going to ignore you. So you should go for that damage build so that if Petal does die, you still have a potential to win the fight with your Batiste. But we're going to have to wait and see what build they're going to go for. What are you thinking, Question?
I agree with you on that point. I would like to see more damage on that of the Batiste, because it always is a bit sad when we see Batiste used as kind of what I'd like to explain why I didn't like CP Glaive being picked up when it used to be around in the current meta. Because of that factor that you're just relying on them for the CC they give available, and maybe a slight bit of burst at the start, but really not able to do anything on their own. And it's sad to see that if they decide to go for that, is a lot more team fight oriented, and they have to win it out completely if they give up that of the pedal to the side of Impunity. Whoever really good engage, it really could fall apart for them if they decide to go on a bit more of a utility Batiste, to say the least.
This is it. Last chance stand for Impunity. If Impunity lose this, they are out. They cannot win the title. They are guaranteed second place, I'm pretty sure. And Renegades will have won. So lots of pressure on both of these teams, mostly on Impunity though, because Renegades know, yeah, if we lose this, we still have a chance. Eldritch Wind stolen by SNK. That's a nice little steal away there. And Impunity, they don't have to win the early game this time, because level 6, they have some nice power spikes when they can just try and dive this petal as much as possible. But it would obviously be nice for them to start the snowball against Renegades.
Yep. Also, Rez are going to have that power spike as soon as they get a hold of that aftershock. So that will be nice to see coming out from the side of Impunity. You mentioned the level 6 overall. The Never Formed DNA will be strong and the Red Mist for them. So we could see some good ganks coming up towards that early mid game. And for now, Renegades just going to have to, I guess, do their best and work on farming more than anything, get this weapon power pedal built up the best they can, and just be able to, I think it's why I like to always say when you're playing with that other Arden or a Lyra, those heroes that help you sustain or give you direct shielding, such as the Vanguard, which I think is a great ability, and having Arden on your team is a great help to go for more offensive builds, maybe more glass cannon to say the least. And we will see the engagement coming out here from Impunity. They might pick up SNK for the first blood by Vanguards himself, and he will be up to get out there.
You're now going to start this Elder Tree. No, Blukesty going much more aggressive onto Xingyi, but the Ordained just making sure that nothing else comes through from it. I think Blukesty should just secure that Elder Tree for himself. Batiste is not interested at all. Xingyi is thinking, right, how quickly can I farm my jungle? It's going to spawn in a couple of seconds, so I'm just going to wait here and take my jungle. If Reza tries to come and contest it, I'm just going to see if I can secure it with my last hit with Bad Mojo. So, smart play from Renegades. They know they don't have the early game advantage, but they can try and stop any pressure with that Vanguard.
Yep, and we do see that both teams, just as I said, a fairly passive otherwise early game, and you kind of mentioned that we'll be looking at more of a, I guess, team fights or ganks coming into the fact of when they start to get those tier 3 items or work around to the level 6.
Yeah, I think that it's not necessarily that level 6 is stronger for Impunity, but it's just the fact that it's so weak for weapon power petal that any ultimate you have is going to be better than that. Even Rona's Red Mist, which is going to be unlikely to be landing on anyone, better than Petal's ultimate, because you kill minions so quickly that you're not going to get many heals from spontaneous combustion. And maybe Bluksty's waiting for his aftershock until he decides to be very aggressive, or maybe he's just too scared of that Ordained. And 2 treants have been taken by Renegades, 1 was taken by Impunity, so gold very, very even. And I am surprised Impunity are being passive, but it's not that surprising, because if you think about the first game when they tried to be aggressive and they just got shut down. But I think they could try to do a little bit more.
Yeah, they could try to do a little bit more indeed, especially with Blue City coming up to that of the level 6. He's going to have a Never Formed DNA to jump in there, a very powerful gank tool, more so than that of his Troublemaker. It means that he can use that to get into the initial fight, and then the Troublemaker to actually go around the rest of it. And he doesn't have that Aftershock just yet, is what I'm worrying about, but DefQ going to jump onto the backline with Into the Fray, trying to land some damage onto Uni, but Uni just kiting them out for now. I think a potion might have been popped. Yeah, Uni using that Halcyon potion there, and then for the side of Impunity, they obviously have Lyra to provide the healing, so they don't need to worry too much and can keep those potions in their pockets for now. And we will see that of Chingy actually getting the level 6 alongside Blue City. You talked about fairly even gold, but also fairly even levels, because they were able to deny that second treant, the outer treant, from that of Blue City. I think if RNG didn't rotate down then and Blue City was able to get it, they could have had a successful gank for themselves on the side of Impunity with that level advantage.
Yeah, Call of War going for lots of health. He had 2 Dragon Hearts in his inventory. Now picking up the Crucible. It makes a lot of sense, because up against Batiste, if you don't get Crucible first, you will not be able to Crucible the Fear in time. Xingyi has gone for the Shatterglass first, a smart build. That's what we wanted to see. It makes sense, because when you're up against a dive comp that's just going to dive into your carry, you might as well have damage to deal with it. But there is a Crucible on Call of War. It looks like he might even be going for Null Wave next item. I wouldn't expect that. I'd expect maybe a contraption or a... contraption, or that, because it's going to go into Clockwork.
Yes, could be that the contraption or Clockwork. Either way, I think both would be a good item for that Lyra to go next. They always have, they already have the Crucible, but it's going to be the Never Formed DNA actually dodging out the fearsome shade, and DefQ just standing up in that front line. You can see Crucible being put to use, as I mentioned it, not just for the healing benefits. You can see the fact that a great item into those team fights, as you mentioned, the CC coming out from that Batiste you've really got to worry about and help protect your team from that. Is they're looking at more building towards damage instead of any kind of early reflex, and DefQ not going to poke their head out of that bush. And find Chingy waiting there for them. Chingy instead going to go back to base. And still sitting at 0-0 and a slight gold lead for the side of Impunity, but it really doesn't mean too much at this point.
At the end of that fight, ultimates were used by Shingy and by Bluxty. Bluxty is now back off cooldown, where Shingy is still on cooldown for another 30 seconds. So if Impunity decide to fight now, they could be ahead, but I doubt they're going to. Rez is very defensive, and it is looking like it's going to be a null wave second item, because that was an hourglass picked up by Quadrivar. It's now been built into a chronograph as well as the Dragon Heart, so perfect recipe towards null wave. I'm surprised. It's not something we've seen anyone build ever, but Quadrivar thinking it's worth it, gives him a nice amount of health, denies the Fountain from SNK if it's timed at the right time. So if it's used at the right time. So interesting to see how this is going to work. I would have liked to see reflex blocks from Impunity. They need to block that Ordained, otherwise they're going to not be able to dive in onto Uni, or block the Gauntlet, which is going to be up soon.
Well, that's the thing. Quadrivar has two options once they finish that Null Wave Gauntlet. They could either use it onto SNK, or they could use it onto Chingy, who's playing that Batiste. We talked about the CC coming out from them before, and perhaps Impunity instead decide to dive onto the Batiste. But you can see SNK getting caught out slightly by DefQ. Uni doing a good job of holding off in a safe distance underneath their turret to just poke out Rona and get them to go back. But Impunity have other ideas for now. They will start that of the Goldman. They might get spotted out by Batiste on his rotation, but they're taking this fairly quickly, and it looks like they're going to get that 400 gold to themselves, pushing that gold lead just slightly further in their favor, although that's the first real objective any team has taken in this match so far. 8 minutes in, so I talked about last match being passive, and I want to jinx it again, because really, we're 8 minutes in, and 0 kills across the board. We've seen a bit of poke, and no one really going too low. We've seen some damage flow out, but no one really going into that danger zone of us getting out of our seats and getting too hyped over this match.
Yeah, there's been one team fight, but no one deciding to get themselves caught out over it. Infusion popped by DefQ, so both members of Impunity are infused. Bluxty managed to use his to get a gold mine secured, so that's worth it. 400 gold for every member of your team, because you spent 500 gold. And DefQ's now popped his, so Renagades will lose the fight, and it is a clockwork second item, not a null wave. We've been baited. Lara just wanted extra health. That clockwork is really good for these extra healing, extra bulwarks perhaps. And please, someone just fight. Go for it, Impunity. Here we go.
It's going to be the engagement through the Arcane Passage into the Bright Bulwark. Very classic, but it's going to be followed up with the Gauntlet that stuns out a fair few of Impunity's team. And Blue City just having to back off from this fight. And it could be another fight left with no reward.
Yeah, we see Petal jump away. Arden, very good Gauntlet usage. SNK playing really well today, but he could be caught out. But nope, he's going to use Healing Flask and he'll be fine. I doubt Impunity are going to get any Petals under turret, she'll be fine. And the Arcane Passage was used really well by Quadrivar, but the team weren't ready. Rona spent about 3 seconds trying to walk through the Arcane Passage, because she went in, it wasn't quite there, you had to walk out, walk in, walk out, and then finally went through it. By that time, Petal was 5 miles away, was under her turret. Arden with a great Gauntlet to stop any further engage, and we tried to stop the stalling game. It almost worked, but still 0-0. Uni will be happy because he's picked up 2 damage items. He wants to get as many as possible before any team fights happen. And still, no reflex blocks for Impunity, despite that Ordained and Gauntlet coming out. Crucible can only stop the Fearsome Shade.
Yep, and there's going to be the 10-minute mark ticking over. Still no kills, no turrets, nothing. But I can assure you, after the next fight, whichever team wins, and whenever it may be, they are definitely going to have enough damage to burst through at least 1 and possibly 2 turrets, depending if they get that ace.
Quadrivar, what are you building? You put a crystal bit on Captain Lyra. He's not going for Fountain. He just doesn't need it. I'm very confused what's going on here, but he thinks it's going to work out. Impunity maybe looking to fight soon. I suppose that heal did just kill all of Petal's minions with popping it, but I'm very confused why she's going to build that. I mean, it did 300 damage to Uni, but you're Lyra. You're meant to heal your teammates. Don't heal the enemy. It doesn't do that much damage, really. But he doesn't think Fountain's worth it. Doesn't think Contraption's worth it. He just wants damage.
Well, I think that if Cordovar in the team fights and by picking up that Clockwork second, you talked about more heals coming out. Well, when that comes into a whole team fight factor, you will see the heals being chucked down in the front line where Def Q is. And as long as Def Q's in them, he's getting healed and the enemy's going to get damaged when the burst pops up. But we see Impunity playing a bit more aggressive here. Uni going down to about half health, but Chingy still staying fairly healthy on the front line, yet not really able to do too much damage to Impunity. They are going to heal that right back up, and the poke game just continues on. We might see Blue City get caught out by Chingy Beaver first blood, but DefQ gonna jump over the wall with into the fray. The gauntlet lands right onto Blue City. He could definitely go down in this situation. Fountain used by both teams there, and they're going to get the first blood. Pedal taking down that of the Reza, and the Lyra actually picking up the kill onto Batiste. That Crystal Bit paying off for them now, and they've laid the Bright Bulwark down. It might be enough for DefQ to run in and get the kill at will, and whoa indeed, as we see that Pedal just blowing up into the air. The last person remaining for the side of Renegades for now is that of SNK, but Chingy going to be coming back up onto the fold from the dead. And I really thought the team would get something out of it here. I thought Renegades might get a turret, but SNK doing a good job of holding the lane, waiting for Chingy to get back, and I think he'll have enough CC to help hold off Impunity.
Yeah, finally we're seeing a team fight. 3 kills have gone over, and the plays from Renegades are so impressive. We saw a Ordained onto Bluxity, which got the stun on the edge of the Ordained. Immediately, SNK followed up with a Gauntlet, bang on to Bluxity. He got chain CC'd, and then he almost died, then did in fact die to Uni in the end. But I figured out Cordovar, after a little bit of thought, he's going to go for Dragon's Eye on Lyra. We said when Dragon's Eye was first released, it was suspected that captains might pick it up because they're going to be in the team fight for 9 seconds, guaranteed. And so it looks like on this Lyra, he's gone for Clockwork into Dragon's Eye, because he's going to have a lot of damage late game in the late parts of the team fight. That's going to be something that they have to worry about, and it's going to work out. I think it's going to work out quite well. You said Fountain was used by both teams, but there's no Fountain for Impunity, so they can't use it.
My mistake there.
I don't think he's going to get one. I think he's just going to go for health and this double crystal power build.
It does mean the Fountain will not be available to that of Impunity, but they might rely on just the Clockwork, and Lyra putting out enough heals as we see the engagement coming through from the side of Impunity. They pick up 2 kills, and Uni just left underneath that turret. They might get that Blue City. The turret being a bit laggy there, and you can see Blue City probably a bit sweaty, and there's going to be the kill as they go in with that Arcane Passage for the ace. Impunity finally getting something out of it. And as you said, if this goes on to the long game with how it's been playing so passive, going towards that Dragon's Eye, really not a bad idea, but Impunity probably going to get a better outcome out of this now as they've pushed 2 turrets down. As I say that, DefQ gained that second turret, so it's going to be able to get out there with into the fray and out of the fray. And now we see Impunity much more in the lead, 5 kills to 1, and that gold mine going over to them once again, 32.4k gold over to 27.2. If that Dragon's Eye comes through, which you mentioned, and it's more than likely now, more than likely with the Eclipse Prism being picked up second there, it's going to be quite exciting to see, to say the least. Already Impunity have such a good engage comp, and then the fact that there's going to be more damage on the back of that, and I think it's they put their trust in the healing that Cordovar can put out with the Clockwork and the Crucible amping up that of the heals coming through with Imperial Sigil.
Do you know what needs to be countered here? SNK needs to counter with a Dragon's Eye of his own. CP Arden. Arden's Gauntlet has a 300% CP ratio and counters CP Lyra with your own CP Captain, but here we're going to go.
And there's going to be the engagement coming through. Kraken now on the fold. Which team wins this one out? Could put on the pressure to Impunity, pushing them back under their turret, and no Dragon's Eye just yet for Cordovar, so they might hold off from this fight, but there's going to be the Ordained keeping DefQ under there until they use it into the fray. Fountain already popped so early on from the side of Renegades, maybe a bit of a mistake, but they're able to pick up the Reza in the end anyway, and DefQ trying to jump onto Chingy on the backline. I'm not too sure about that. Instead of running away, they will hand over their ace as Cordovar got taken down on their own, and now the turnaround coming through from the side of RNG, so you can see how even this game still is, even though Impunity have won out the previous 2 fights, Renegades kind of negate all that effort with that of taking 2 turrets and a Kraken in their favor.
Court d'Ivoire apparently disagrees with me and thinks that Spellfire is the correct choice on this Captain Lyra. Oh no, from iRequested Duel, a facepalm from Minimiter, and I do not like that at all. Spellfire isn't a good item on a CP Gwen that has 3 damage items in 2.9. 2.10 is a little bit better. It's actually a feasible item on CP Gwen once you've built up a lot of crystal power. It's just not a good pick. It's not going to do any damage, and they're going to have very, very little healing. Impunity needs to win this fight, or else they could be in a lot of trouble.
And there's going to be Cordoval going on to the backline with the Arcane Passage into the Bright Bulwark, and they take out the Batiste instantly, followed by the Petal going down, and really SNK just left to run away. And those are the kind of engagements we like to see from the side of Impunity, really showing off their team comp, the strength that they have when they have the upper hand. But in those poke engagements we saw previously under their own turret, it starts to go a bit more in favor of that, of the team of Renegades, who just seem to, even though you would expect that the side with more sustain should win those out, there's just quite a lot of poke overall. We did talk about the Batiste going for a more damage build will be the better path for him to do rather than the sustain, so I do like that pickup of the Shatter into the Dragon's Eye and the Clockwork, a very good build overall coming out from them. So Renegades, they aren't really at such a disadvantage until they get jumped on with that Arcane Passage and they're all grouped up like that.
Yeah, part of the reason why the fight was lost is because SNK didn't have Gauntlet, didn't have Echo available. Now it's available, SNK can use that Echo Gauntlet, but when they were pushing Kraken, he had nothing. He couldn't peel for Petal. Yes, Uni can try and run away, but they can just keep chasing with this Rona, who's overdriven her B and C. I generally see an A overdriven her own, but this does make sense. You also want to keep up with the Petal with your foe splitter. And I just, going back to that Spellfire, I don't see the reasoning behind it. You deal a tick of damage similar to what Churnwalker's Chain does with that Spellfire in this current patch with a Lyra that has exactly 90 crystal power. I guess the infusion is kind of helpful. That will boost it by 60. So 150 CP being dealt is not that much damage for Uni to worry about because he has an Aegis. So Court d'Ivoire not having that much healing, only with a Crucible and War Treads to actually support his team. Clockwork does help give him a bit more cooldown, but Clockwork works with where every time you damage an enemy with your abilities, it reduces the cooldown. Well, if you damage them with your Imperial Sigil, your Sigil is not on cooldown yet because it only goes on cooldown once it's been popped, and your portal doesn't do any damage. So Clockwork does work well on Lyra for the cooldown, but the passive doesn't work well at all.
Yeah. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because with the Spellfire, is it the same price as that of the Dragon's Eye?
It is. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the same.
So why would you go for, as you mentioned, a tick of damage over to that of, if you get the whole 9 stacks, I believe you can get...
Which you will.
5 CP just off that item. And it really boggles my mind. I could understand, well, maybe going in to that team fight, when you put this your abilities down, they're all gonna get hit by the Spellfire. Then they're probably going to take some kind of damage over time, and it will help out Verona. But we will see the engagement come through once again. Court d'Ivoire going in with Arcane Passage into Brightfall with Gotland to follow up on that, but it's not going to stop Blue City as he chases onto Uni, but the Petal will just scare him off anyway. Rona taking down the Batiste, but he did manage to find the Lyra before he fell, and Impunity now having to run for their lives from that of Uni and SNK. The weapon Petal is going to take Rona down mid-leap, and they could chase down Blue City for the kill. Blue City being a bit too carefree in his own jungle, trying to take that healing tree, and doesn't get caught out for it, so the Ace not going to go in favor of Renegades, but they will probably get this Kraken without contest.
Yeah, Echo was actually used on the Vanguard, not on Gauntlet in that fight, but it didn't matter. Uni was just out damaging Defke. Defke had 20 breaking point stacks at the end of that fight, but just couldn't decide to go in because Bonesaw means that his armor was being shredded. Petal was just able to kill him. And Court d'Ivoire does 541 healing on this Lyra, and that's something, but if he had a proper captain build, this would be closer to 900 healing, and that's really the problem. Okay, 601 now with that pop. that particular pot, but it's not as much as it could be. There's no poison shiv, so every bit of health is as useful as it can be on this Lyra. We're gonna have to wait and see how this team fight's gonna work out. Gauntlet and Echo available for Renegades.
Yep, the Gauntlet and the Echo are available, so that's going to play a big part into the side of Renegades, I guess, siege on this anchor turret, whether the side of Impunity try and jump onto them and punish them for poking down at this turret, then they're able to turn the fight around because of that, or they just wait until Kraken takes it and then go in with the Gauntlet, which I wouldn't be surprised if we see SNK do here. He's going to go in. There's the Gauntlet, does trap out that Blue City and Quarterval on the edge. DefQ managed to get out prior to it, but Petal somehow taking down that Lyra under that turret. Not too sure what happened there, but you might have caught onto that. We will get back onto that at the end of this team fight as we see DefQ and Blue City once again caught up in the echoed Gauntlet. The Kraken pushing onto this crystal with ease, and Renegades take the 2-0 in the first match of the day. And that just means, I'm sorry to say to all the other teams, but Renegades are going to be that first place spot no matter what.
Renegades are champions of Southeast Asia. Fantastic plays by all of them. The number of times that SNK landed a Gauntlet and it stunned 1, 2, 3 members